Hi everyone, welcome to our live Q&A session. It's my pleasure to welcome Coach Alina here. And Alina, how are you today?
Hi, Veronika. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing really good. How are you?
I'm good. And I would like you to know, guys, just yesterday we were doing a podcast episode with Coach Alina, and we talked about pregnancy insomnia. So anybody who is interested, it will be soon, maybe this week or next week, on Alina's channel. So and I would like to basically start with. Something that we were also yesterday talking about a little bit, and it is this statement by Naval. You are always making the best choice based on your current understanding. Don't try to change the choice, change the understanding. So this is something really helpful for especially those who are really regretting all those years they were suffering and regretting their poor choices, because anytime we are doing our best, we are trying our best to help ourselves. Very often we take the first advice that we get, and it might not be the best choice, might not be the best advice, but at that given time, it was best for us. So, what do you think, Alina? How would you explain also this statement?
Yeah. Well, basically, I actually came across this quote,
Mhm.
maybe a couple of months ago, and when I saw it, it's like, it is so true that
Mm.
we often look on our journey and we start like finding all the faults that we made. Let's say, oh, here I gave in to fear, and here I did this and I did that, and this for sure like made things worse, and so on and so forth. And this kind of perception usually creates a lot of self-judgment on ourselves, and we
Mm.
feel like we cannot make good choices here. But it really helps to kind of like revisit how we look on our past choices, because really whatever we chose to do, however we chose to support ourselves on a given period of our journey, was actually the best out of all possible choices that we had available in that moment. And it's really about like understanding that when we have a certain understanding, let's say when we just start the journey and we know very little about what is actually going on when we struggle with insomnia, a lot of things feel scary. It's so natural that we are going to engage into behaviors that kind of like promise us to keep us safe. So we cannot really judge ourselves because that was our understanding later on. Right. And now, as the journey goes on and we start educating ourselves about this topic, we start to learn more about how things actually work. And then with that new understanding comes new possibilities, comes new choices. And still, that's the current choice, maybe a current circumstance where a certain range of choices is available to us and we are making the best, right?
Mm.
In the future, those choices can be different again. So knowing that we don't have to really stress so much about like whether we take the right choice or not, knowing that we can always change, we can always learn from our past experience and make a new choice next time. So I hope that maybe a little bit kind of puts or brings a bit more ease to
Yeah,
anyone.
exactly. Yeah, thank you so much, Alina. And we have the first comment here. So we have a comment from SKXM. Why do I wake up after 5 or 6 hours of sleep every day? My head hurts, eye burns, and it feels awful. So, uh, right. And when we suffer from insomnia, it's very common to wake up either after a specific amount of time or at a specific time, right? Like for example, 2:23. Like Daniel calls it Swiss awakenings. And when we wake up, it's basically always the same. It's our fear of not sleeping and the hyperarousal we have in our body that is prompting us to wake up. So uh, we cannot change that we wake up, and but what we can change is our reaction. When we wake up in the middle of the night and we are upset and nervous and we are angry about it, then we are just reinforcing to our brain that waking up in the middle of the night is not safe. We basically label it as danger. And when our brain senses danger, then it's going to send us more hyperarousal. I want to help you so you can either fight or fly this threat. And our brain doesn't care that this is just a perceived threat, like something that really cannot hurt us. It treats it the same as if someone or something was really life threatening you, like when you have a tangible threat. So you get all these signals in your, all these symptoms in your body, and of course it feels uncomfortable. But what matters is the reaction. You can see it and redefine it as an invitation to befriend wakefulness. That's one thing. And the other thing is to reframe it like you wake up, which means you slept, right? So bringing awareness to this and seeing it not as catastrophic and normalize this, like, okay, I just wake up, and stating it like a fact. It's with this kind of like approach, this experience is going to fade away with time. So yeah, I think we can move to another question, and the another question is from Liha. Hi, I hope you guys are well. Yes, we are. Thank you so much. I've been on my insomnia journey for over a year now. I haven't had a night where I haven't woken up multiple times. I'm getting quite frustrated. How can I overcome this? So, what's your thoughts, Alina?
Yeah, I think it's a very common experience, like when we feel like, okay, I've been on this journey for a certain amount of time. By this time, I'm supposed already to see certain progress. And it's really natural to think this way, because of course insomnia feels very tiring and we want to kind of like get out of it as soon as possible. But what usually creates a lot of trouble on this journey is our insistence how our recovery should look like. By now I am supposed to sleep this way, or by now I should have had at least this experience or at least that experience. So when we create for ourselves these conditions, like, okay, this is what is normal, and I'm not yet kind of like fulfilling this normal, then we feel frustrated. And then again, like that frustration reinforces this idea that there is something wrong with us. So we are kind of like getting into this self-perpetuating cycle when we try really hard to create a certain experience, but then when we see that this experience is not happening, we get frustrated, which already creates a certain expectation on ourselves, like, okay, so this is again is not going to happen and I'm failing this, right? So it's again that the pressure itself that creates a lot of struggle on this journey. So I would say that there is no how to say, like a right way or like a certain kind of like a timeline that everyone should fit in. So it doesn't mean that, let's say by, let's say when you go through like a 1 year mark, that's your sleep is supposed to look like this and like this and like this, and if you don't meet it, then there's something wrong. There is absolutely no such rule or guidance. And it might be helpful to allow those experiences to show up in their own time. For example, I can share my example here, because for me, for basically the whole duration of my insomnia recovery journey, I couldn't nap. And before I had insomnia, I could nap. Like it was not a problem for me. And I made already huge progress on this journey, but I still couldn't, take a nap during the day, and it was bothering me for a long time because I felt so much pressure around this, and I felt like, okay, probably this is never going to happen, or I'm somehow doing worse, because I could see like other people, they were sharing like that they could nap during their recovery journey and I cannot. So I felt like there's something wrong with me. But the truth is here is like when we let all those experiences to show up on their own, not pressure ourselves to get the experience that we want, with time this experience starts to kind of like appear more and more. So for example, maybe for Liha, she might start noticing that there is less awakenings. There are still awakenings happening, but maybe there is less. So we can just like start building our trust that our body can produce solid sleep by looking at evidence. Okay, how can I show that? Okay, maybe there was solid sleep happening for like 1 or 2 hours. That is still already like some evidence that the body is capable of sleeping continuously. Maybe right now it looks like 1 or 2 hours, but it doesn't mean that in the future it cannot be 3 and then 4 and so on and so forth. But when we feel like, or when we take our experience as evidence of failure, then of course it makes us feel more, hyper aroused and more worried, as opposed to feeling supported by our body. I don't know if that makes sense to Liha, but I hope that brought some clarity.
Yeah, definitely. So it was, I believe, pretty great answer. And we have a question from Iran. Hi, Iran. I always feel tired even after sleeping well. It's me all day. Please tell some tips to make my brain feel fresh again. Uh, yeah, so when we are talking about insomnia, of course, like feeling unrefreshed could be for different reasons. But since we are talking about insomnia here, the reason for this could simply be that something we call a post-arousal fatigue. And this is when our body was for a long time in a hyperarousal state. We were tired, but this tiredness was covered, literally covered with hyperarousal. And when the hyperarousal goes down, then the real tiredness is unmasked, and we can feel continuously exhausted all the time. And it could take really, really time. It could take from weeks and months to really feel like ourselves. And in this in this transitioning period, the best what you can do is to lean into self-care. Just do what helps you the best to support yourself physically and mentally. Go for walks, like just exercise. And you will exercise in your everyday life, so you get stronger. If you happen to be the way of insomniac I was at the beginning, when I was just laying around on the couch, so of course I was tired all the time, not only because I didn't sleep, but also because I got weaker. And also lean into you can lean into mental self-care. What helps you to support yourself mentally? Calling a friend, or just doing learning to meditate. So uh, as always, it's when we have a situation that we cannot control, we can be upset about it. But what's more helpful is how we approach it. When we approach it with the way that we can make the best out of the situation. This is going to help us progress into better stages of recovery. Right. So we have a question from Happy Tahar. I hope I pronounced it right. And are insomnia and OCD similar? Complete recovery is possible for insomnia, but is it possible for OCD too? As I think that they both are similar in some way. So, what are your thoughts, Ali?
It's actually a really good question, I think, because there are communities that actually call insomnia, as we talk about it here, as sleep OCD. So I
Yes.
definitely think that there is some link. And sometimes I think that when people are talking about OCD, there definitely might be some patterns that we observe, like in insomnia. Definitely compulsive behavior, like ensuring we have perfect conditions, trying to not jinx, our progress, all this kind of stuff. Like it becomes we create a sense of safety based on rituals that give us kind of like a false safe feeling of safety.
Mhm.
And it kind of keeps us in this loop of fearing being awake at night, because the brain will never be kind of like satisfied completely, even if we fulfill all of its requirements, right? It will tell us like, okay, protect, like eliminate sound noise, like sound at night, so that you don't so that you're not awakened by any noise, right? So you do that. Now it latches onto something. Now let's make sure that your temperature in the room, is the right amount. Now we are trying to obsess with that, and then we create like literally perfect sterile conditions for sleep, and then still not enough, because we are constantly on the lookout for the next thing that we can fix and kind of repair about the situation. And it really helps to acknowledge that it is the compulsive behavior, the attempt to shield ourselves and our sleep from any possible disruption. That's what perpetuates the cycle. So I would say that there are definitely, at least I see parallels here. And as I said, like some people, they do call, let's say, insomnia as a sleep OCD. And I know that the recovery is possible. And there is one particular channel I actually really enjoy, like checking them out, because they do have a lot of good points that are similar to what we are talking about. This called OCD recovery, and I think this is like it. I think that they're also on YouTube, and they are talking about the process of recovery, and they have already also like success stories and all this kind of stuff. So I would say, just like it is possible to recover from insomnia, it is also possible to recover from OCD, from what I've seen so far in on that channel, how they talk about this. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah. So thank you, Alina. I'll just add that I was very obsessed with my bedroom, and I was like really. I remember myself. I was blacking out even the LED diodes that were, in my room. That so I can't see them. I had the blackout curtains, and despite I had the blackout curtains and the blackout all the LED diodes in my room, I had to wear an eye mask. So but also we need to understand that our brains are very sensitive and very receptive when we are not when we are basically in survival mode, and it really feels that we are bothered by everything of this. But really stepping back from this struggle and just seeing that it is just an idea from our brain that is, like you very nicely said, that is just trying to impose like this kind of safety from something that we are not threatened. That is just a game from our brain, and seeing through this kind of tricks helps us to not buy into them. So yeah, that was it. And yeah, we have a thank you note from Liha. And yeah, thank you so much for what you do. It's incredibly helpful and has brought me out of my darkest time. So I'm happy to hear that, Liha. Thank you. And yeah, so I think we can answer one last question to Happy Chahar. My thoughts trigger me a lot, and I find it very hard to not think about them or pay attention to them. I will be very grateful to you if you tell me how to let our thoughts just let them be. And we also have another thank you note from Happy. Thank you so much, Coach Alina and Veronika. You guys have really helped me in changing my perspective and my overall life. So happy to hear this. And now your question, Happy or Jahar. And what you wrote here basically is quite important. Like, I find it very hard to not think about the thoughts or pay attention to them. And this is what is creating an extra layer of struggle, because when we have thoughts, they come to us automatically. We cannot control what thoughts occur in our brain, and trying hard to avoid them or resist them is creating this extra struggle. So really acknowledging the thoughts like, what if this is my life forever? What if I don't sleep tonight? What if I will lose my job? And so on and so on. There are so many of them. It is they create a lot of discomfort, not only mentally but also physically in our body. And of course, this discomfort is very unpleasant, and we want to resist it, avoid it, and we are doing our best. But the more we are resisting it, the more louder our brain shouts. So the best way to not to think of it is to let it think of it. Because when you acknowledge them, okay, my brain is telling me that I will lose my job. Okay, my brain is telling me that this is my forever. Just acknowledge it. Aha, this is my thought that I will lose my job. When you just acknowledge it with aha and just describe the thought, you are already creating a distance between yourself and the thought. And when you create the distance, this thought doesn't immediately translate into into physical discomfort in your body, and you don't immediately buy into this thought, you don't immediately believe it, and sometimes uh, it's helpful to disprove a thought like I have performed well in the past, right? So it never happened this situation that I would lose my job. But on the other hand, but sometimes uh, we are not persuaded enough, right? And it's impossible to persuade our brain. So sometimes just leaving the thought there. Okay, thank you, brain, for telling me this. I might lose my job. Okay, I just let it be there without engaging too much into that. It's more than enough. I hear you. What are you telling me? So I hope this was helpful. Any ideas from you, Alina?
Yeah, I think you said it very nicely. It's about creating space and seeing thoughts for what they are. And I think, as you said, like, yeah, like we don't control like whether we have those thoughts or not. I mean, like we can try our best to prevent them, like to put a block, but they will still kind of like get through. And instead of like fighting this fact that our brain is going to think about something, especially when it considers to be a threat, then it can bring a little bit peace to actually realize that it's normal for me right now to have increased thinking activity that that might scare me sometimes, and it's really not the thoughts themselves. They are not the problem. It is how we think about our thoughts. That's what creates a lot of suffering and a lot of problem. If we take our thoughts to be evil, something that is a sign of a failure, or any sort of like very negative catastrophic outlook on thought themselves, then of course they are going to have like a special importance to ourselves when they happen. But when we realize that, okay, my brain can come up with a bunch of thoughts, and some of the thoughts they are about like, okay, what am I going to eat for dinner, and some thoughts about whether I'm going to sleep tonight or not, right? And the only difference between those thoughts is that one feels ordinary and it's like, it doesn't bother me. I don't really have any opinion about this thought. It's just a thought about, okay, what am I going to eat for dinner? And another one feels important. So it's this label that we give a thought that what creates struggle. And now knowing that this is the label of that creates the struggle, now we can actually work towards changing that label. We don't have to change it in a sense like, okay, this is just an ordinary thought, because if it feels visceral, then it is kind of like visceral, right? We don't have to lie to ourselves, but it helps to acknowledge thought as automatic. When we know like, oh, it's an autopilot, it already can take away this evilness from the thought itself, because we know it's a just like if you would open your computer and then the antivirus program would launch on its own and will start scanning for viruses, right? It's uncomfortable. I mean, we don't really like when it does it in the middle of when we are doing something else, right? But at the same time, we know it is safe. It's automatic, and the best what we can do is just leave it there, like just leave that window open until it completes what it needs to complete, and then we are just continuing to do what we want to do without trying to close the program. So when we create this outlook on this thinking process as something that is automatic, and it can be here, then it's already gets easier for ourselves to kind of like not pay attention to the thoughts, but it will not be forced. It will not be like, okay, I'm just closing my ears and trying to pretend like I don't think them, but we just acknowledge it's just automatic. It's like just my brain is broadcasting something here. That's okay. It can do whatever it wants, and I'm just keep doing my thing at the same time.
Thank you so much. And do you have one moment? We have an interesting question from Kikina. Right. So, what about chronic head tension due to stress and fear of not sleeping? And the tension is so bad I can't live normally. And yeah, I would like to share to your question, Kikina, that everything that is chronic, then it always implies that our brain is creating this kind of condition that is chronic. For example, there could be chronic pain, chronic insomnia, chronic fatigue, And it could be also this chronic head tension. And very often when people go to have a checkups by the doctors, they find out that there is physically nothing wrong with them. And this gives us a idea that this chronic discomfort is created by our brain, and it's something like a fear response. Uh, what happens with this kind of discomfort is when this occurs, we tend to cramp. We tend to really create to the original layer of tension, we create another one. Oh my goodness, I have this tension. And we kind of like add another layer of this tension. And what we teach here about befriending wakefulness, this could be applied to all various kinds of symptoms. Also, this chronic head tension. So when you feel this tension in your head, can you just approach it with curiosity? Can you just uh, approach it like, okay, what does this tension feels like? Is it like I don't know? Could it be like I don't know what attributes there could be like? Is it like um, what kind of pain this could be? Like, is it hot? Is it cold? Or can you attribute it any color? Because when you uh, try to get to know this tension, when you try to get to know this discomfort, when you are curious about it, as I mentioned earlier today, it's about labeling it as safe, which is something different when you cramp and when you just really create another layer of struggle. You label it as danger, and when you and with this you just intensify the occurrence of this tension in your head. So befriending it, allowing it, and easing into this pain is labeling, is it safe? You are sending a signal back to your brain, hey, feeling this is safe, and it cannot hurt you, it is uncomfortable, yes, absolutely, but allowing it to exist in your everyday life, and to kind of making it, maybe saying a friend is too much, for now the first step to tolerate it. And we talk about often about sitting with emotions or sitting with a symptom. So when you sit with this tension, then you not only can sit with it, you can take it for shopping, you can take it to work, you can take it everywhere. And when you just allow it, you are teaching your brain that this is not a threat, this is safe. And when your brain understands it, it doesn't have to send more of this signal. So I hope it helps. Do you have anything to add, Alina?
No, I think you mentioned it like really nicely to the point.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, we are at the end of our Q&A session today, and I thank you so much, Alina, and I wish everybody a happy Easter. So goodbye, everybody.
Bye.